What would you do if you weren't afraid? Sheryl Sandberg. DZ Tribe, Josh Thomas, super glad to have you here. Be sure to follow and subscribe on Apple or Spotify. Make sure you don't miss another episode of the Do Zone. This podcast is brought to you by Unbreakable Teams. We help entrepreneurs build the systems they need to crush their goals, the teams they need to execute those systems, and the accountability they need to make sure it all gets done. If you're ready to take your business to the next level and you know you can't do it alone, go to unbreakableteams.com now. Once again, that's unbreakableteams.com. Today's guest is Mason VanMeter. He helps insurance agents build wildly profitable businesses and change their lives. He works with the human brain to rewire it to best suit the people that he works with. Mason, welcome to the Do Zone. Say what's up to the tribe and tell us something you believe is the key to getting stuff done that most people wouldn't think of.
What's up, guys? So the key to getting things done that most people would not think of is really emotional intelligence. It's being able to process your emotions and act regardless of how you feel.
Nice. So tell me more about act regardless of how you feel, because I think most human beings have trouble separating those two things.
That's the problem, especially in business, because they try to fix things in order to make themselves feel better. Regardless of how I feel, the business doesn't care. It needs inputs and outputs. That's truly all it is. That's all it is. It doesn't care how you feel. That's irrelevant. I build things to work, not to make myself feel better.
The business needs inputs and outputs. It doesn't care how you feel. And so give me a couple of examples, like maybe just some low-hanging fruit of situations that most business owners and entrepreneurs find themselves in where they're making emotional decisions, not necessarily strategic business decisions.
Getting CRMs at the very beginning, they try to make everything perfect. I have to have the perfect funnel. I have to have all of my inventory in place. There's just a couple examples right there. Like, I started with nothing. It was just like, how can I get the fastest turnaround as possible?
Right. That makes
We can
a lot
improve
of
it later. Let's just get money coming in, because that will solve your problems.
Yeah, healthy lead flow and sales solves almost every problem that you run into. And there's a lot of study and there's a lot of science behind the emotions of what keeps people kind of in this zone of not taking the action, not making that decision. A lot of it has to do with risk avoidance and minimizing threats, those sorts of things, real or perceived. But it all happens kind of up here in the brain, and it goes back, hundreds of thousands of years to where we were trying not to get mauled by saber-toothed tigers and those sorts of things. Have you done any kind of deep dive studies into why that happens so that we can know better how to overcome them?
Oh, 100%. Health is one of the biggest factors. We are now naturally 50% more testosterone deficient than men 50 years ago. That's just a fact for men. On average, the testosterone rates have decreased by 1% a year on average across all men for the last 50 years. And that decreases your risk tolerance. You can't handle stress as well. You start acting like a feminine little girl. You're like, my feelings, my feelings, my feelings.
Why do you think that is? I mean, has there been any kind of theories about why our testosterone levels are dropping?
A lot of it can be EMF. Look at the electrical grid that was built in the last 50 years. We didn't have iPhones 50 years ago. But like, I started off as a machinist and a mechanic 5 years straight out of high school, and I went into vibration analysis, and I started studying like the work of Nikola Tesla, studying all this frequency, energy, and vibration and the effects it has. And it's like, I can predict when a motor is going to fail, all of that stuff, by reading a chart. But it's like, no one ever studies the biological effects that having a cell phone just sitting in your pocket does. Look at the breast cancer rates for all these women who just walk around with their like phone in their bra or in their back pocket, and they have this huge pocket of radiation. That's one of the most terrifying things, but people sit glued to a TV.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Well, you're certainly speaking my language here. There's a book. There's a lady named Loretta Bruning, and she has a book called Habits of the Happy Brain, which happens to just be one of the best ideas that I've ever heard. But it explores this idea that you're talking about, with people making those decisions based on emotions, and separating from that. So from a business perspective, you're saying, look, you got to think about inputs and outputs. You can't let your emotions get in the way. But for a typical human being, we may struggle to do that for one reason or another. And I'm curious, do you have any suggestions for somebody that, like, man, I get you. Man, Mason, I hear you, but I need some help. What are some things that you've found that kind of bridge that gap?
Since we're not talking about anything specific, I am going to be talking in generalizations unless you give me like a specific example. So
Okay.
a lot of it just comes down to the difference of doing what you feel is best, or doing what you feel is your best, versus doing what is actually required. You might feel that doing 100 calls a day is like top of the line, it's the best you can do. But if the business requires 300 calls a day, that's two totally different things.
Hmm.
It's like you feel like you're working hard, but in terms of actual productivity and efficiency, you're not doing what's required. A lot of it just comes down to doing what you do not want to do. And when you get really good at it, you can do it like you love doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said.
That's it.
You're referencing there's just a couple of you're saying things that I've been studying for a long time. There's a book by James Clear called Atomic Habits. It's right there on my shelf, and he talks about this concept of motion versus action. And we feel like we're getting things done, but what we're really doing is we're just creating motion. The only thing that creates results, though, is not that motion, but it's action. Action creates results. Motion just creates noise. And that's kind of what you're
Correct.
referencing there. Like, I feel like I'm doing my best, but I'm not doing what's required to actually create the result.
Correct.
And so the first step from what I heard from you is first identify what is required to be done, and make sure that you're doing that thing. And now,
Like it
if
just
you
takes a
do that,
little bit
just
of
like
planning.
just, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It just takes a little bit of planning. Like
Mhm.
people see other people have things that they want, and they'll say, oh, it must be nice to have that really nice car or house. And they go right back to the cell phone. It's like they never work out how they got it, or the hours they spent working to buy $1 million house.
Hmm.
It's like that you
Yeah,
don't actually plan. There's no deductive thinking.
right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that probably nails it down the best, in the best way possible. So if we're looking to separate our emotions from our logic, we first have to just figure out what is required in order for the result to happen here. And I think that's a great distinction that you brought up. What is actually required here? And are you doing it? And if the answer is no, revise and repeat.
Yeah, that's it. It doesn't matter how you feel.
Mm-hmm. So, talk to me a little bit about what got you into. I know that you are definitely into how the brain works, and you've done quite a bit of studying on that. And tell me what got you into that to begin with.
Neuroscience, like it's Tony Robbins kind of led me down this rabbit hole. I watched a movie when it first came out. I've studied the brain since I was like 15. I was always locked in the apartment, babysitting my little brother and sister. Video games got really boring really quick. So I just Google stuff. I learned how to hack, like software, Linux, all that stuff, programming. And then I learned all about how the brain operates. I wanted to learn like why people behaved in certain ways. I wanted to understand why the world worked the way it did. I wanted to understand people's behavior. Like all that like inner like it was just so interesting to me. And I understand it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I love like electricity and frequency and all. I think it's super interesting. Tesla's like YouTube videos caught me at a very young age. And then over time, it just got more and more intriguing as I became a more critical thinker.
Mm-hmm. And so I know that you've become somewhat of an expert on the unconscious mind. What are some revelations that you found from that?
Two people can have two totally different meanings from the same thing, which tells me reality is not the words you use to describe the event that you see. Like the event itself is different from the information you got from seeing it and how you describe it with words. And it's like, how do bits of information, we process 11 to 15 million bits of information per second unconsciously. It's like that every second, 13 million bits of information roughly. That goes from our right brain hemisphere to our left brain hemisphere, and it packages it in easy to understand words. We use those to describe events and experiences. It's how we break them down simply.
Yeah.
That was something that was crazy to me, but like you can completely rewire your brain in 90 days.
And how would you go about doing something like that? And what would you, when you say rewire it to think differently, to behave
100%
differently?
behave differently. It's all electrical signals. It's all electrical impulses, thoughts, trauma, and toxins all create measurable electrical responses, like their own frequencies. This is the power of thought. So when you hear these like people say all prayer warriors needed, I believe in that stuff fully because I've seen some crazy things happen in this world that I cannot understand. But like I understand scalar waves versus actual electricity that we can see, like a bolt of lightning. That stuff is completely one thing, but I love hypnosis. You can completely you can build new neurological pathways in 90 days and make it autonomous. After 90 days, it becomes autonomous. You do the same thing in the same way for 90 days, it becomes autonomous. And it's neuroplasticity taking over to where uncomfortable becomes comfortable. People just don't want to wait 90 days. They want it now.
I can attest to that. I have a conversation occasionally. I was a smoker for almost 2 decades of my life, and for the first half of it, I just wanted to smoke. For the second half of it, I was just smoking because I wanted to avoid the discomfort of not smoking. And so I finally got to this point to where I was just like, you know what? I don't want this to define me anymore. I would rather have the discomfort of not smoking than the discomfort of being a smoker. And I made the decision, and I got the vape and I worked down the nicotine levels. And then I got to this point to where it was like, all right, it's time to go down to 0. And it was awkward for about 3 weeks. It was like, like, should I bring something with me?
On average, it's 26 days. That's the confusion period of a new habit. 26 days. It's confusing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was awkward. It was like, I'm anxious about not having nicotine handy. I've had some form of nicotine in my body for like 25 years. And then all of a sudden, I got about 3 weeks in, and it was like, I don't need this anymore. And that's when I realized that I smoked for about 15 extra years than I really wanted to, so that I could avoid this 3-week window of discomfort. That 3 weeks of discomfort cost me probably years of my life. I'll never get those back. That's a crazy. So you're really onto something there. We want to avoid that discomfort.
I've helped a lot of people quit smoking with hypnosis, timeline therapy, a lot of that stuff, but it really comes down just to making a decision and sticking with it, because I think as humans, we're all addicted to something. I'm addicted to learning about the brain. I'm addicted to really great conversations. I cannot have surface level conversations. That's why I don't go to holidays. I don't celebrate Christmas with my family because it's all nitpicking about shit that doesn't matter. Aunt Susie's telling me to eat that extra burgers. Like, screw you. Like, you're 400 pounds, woman.
So back to another point that you had made earlier about kind of the energy of another person. I have heard, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, but I have heard that people emit an electrical field within 10, 15 feet of themselves. And you feel this sometimes when somebody walks in the room and the energy changes. That's, you're entering their field, or they're bringing you into their field. Have you researched that? Do you have any thoughts about that?
You can actually see them. I have a pair of dicyanin goggles where you can see people's aura. And what you're talking about is people's body, especially really confident, like alpha male type dudes, really dominant personalities. You know, when a group of like mafia members walk in the restaurant, you're like, there's a group of killers in my vicinity. It
Hmm.
engages your parasympathetic nervous system. But back when dicyanin goggles were made for night vision goggles to see auras, go do some studies on that, because people saw some pretty crazy shit. Electrical disturbances that were perceived as demons, all kinds of stuff, dude. But it, like, you can actually see these with the human eye through dicyanin goggles. So yes, your body emits particles, which are particles or waves, all that stuff. I'm not going to go into a huge rabbit hole of
Sure.
energy. It's just, it will go over most people's heads. They don't care. But yes, it does emit a field, and these are scalar waves. Now, here's the crazy thing about that. Nikola Tesla calls all the energy and electricity that we use today to power like motors, he calls it like retarded energy. Don't think about that word in a negative connotation. It's just what he said. It's retarded energy. It's so slowed down.
Hmm.
What HAARP and HARP, I'm not sure if you've seen that new device they built out in the middle of the ocean that can cause earthquakes and hurricanes.
No.
But it is so crazy. 1 cubic foot of scalar or ethereal energy can run the whole United States for a whole day. A
Wow.
cubic foot of ethereal energy can power the whole United States for one day. This stuff has been proven. It's insane. It is truly insane. Like, most people don't even know that restaurants have a device that sends out an electrical signal, a certain frequency, to increase table turnover. It gets you to eat faster by engaging certain limbic systems in your hypothalamus in your brain to increase table turnover. You eat faster, they get more customers in.
Wow.
How crazy is that?
That's pretty crazy. I didn't know that existed. That sounds like some science fiction stuff, man.
This stuff's been around since the 1940s and 50s. It's just not talked about anymore because no one cares.
Fascinating. You know, you speaking of brain studies, your brain's pretty interesting to me. Let's get into the do zone diagnostic here and ask you a couple of questions about how you operate. Are you ready?
Sure, let's go.
Awesome. So, number one, Mason, what's one thing that you do daily that keeps you focused on your goals?
It's really just being disciplined. I do what I do not want to do, regardless of how I feel. That's really all it is.
Nice. And how do you get back on track when you sometimes lose that focus?
I try to limit distractions as much as possible. Like, I have a couple virtual assistants. One pretends to be me on social media. I have one that engages with all my text messages and stuff. I had my phone carrier reroute them all to his phone before they came to me, except for certain contacts in the event of an emergency. But for the most part, the phone is away from me, and I stay focused. I just
Nice.
stay focused. I just stay ingrained.
I love it. And who is your support group and how do they keep you accountable?
What do you mean by support group? Just to make sure I can answer this correctly.
Yeah, certainly. So, who do you lean on that really helps you get to the next level and pushes you forward?
I have a coach named Nico Moreno. He's pretty cool, but for the most part, 90% of it is all me. I ask myself questions and come to the best possible conclusion and do what I think is going to get the best results. But then I'll run that by him just to make sure it's what he would do.
Mhm.
But I trust myself. Everyone has the resources they need to be successful. They just don't want to accept that accountability and ownership.
Well said. And Mason, how do you approach a difficult project that you're not really sure how to complete?
Just general example, or just speaking broad?
Yep.
I just look at it through a different lens. Like, someone who's already solved this problem, what would they do? And sometimes I just let the 7-year-old come out of me before the school system fucked him up. Like, what would a 7-year-old do in this position? Well, he would label it as easy, fun, whatever, regardless if it is. Even at the gym, I don't call heavyweight. I say this is lightweight.
Nice.
But I just list out all the steps I think would be required of solving this problem and what this problem is going to lead to. I always list out sequences of problems.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
And if something
Last,
doesn't work, I'll go back to the drawing board, but at least I tried something.
That's right. Last question. What's the number one pro tip that you would give to somebody looking to get more stuff done in less time?
Is your listener base mostly men or women?
I would say we lean towards male entrepreneurs.
And can you ask that question one more time?
Certainly. What's the number one pro tip that you would give to someone looking to get more stuff done in less time?
Stay off the internet porn, sacrifice your 20s, leave these women alone. Western society has fallen. Leave the women alone. I promise you, you'll have them later in life. Focus on you right now and getting as much done as possible. Like, just go stack up wins. Go talk to a lot of people and network and solve their problems. Like, bring value. Like, be a productive member of society.
I love it.
That's it. Stay away from the holiday bullshit. Most people don't even know why they're celebrating it.
That's some real talk right there. Yeah, we just got past the Super Bowl. I'm not a sports fan, but
No,
it was
I wish the UFOs would have came and picked the stadium up and drove it away. Like, get it the hell out of here.
That's
like,
right.
Beyond, like Rihanna.
Yep, there you
What?
go. Yep. So talk to me a little bit about. I know that you are helping insurance agents build businesses. Tell me a little bit more about that.
So I sold insurance for 2 years. I did extremely well with that and leveraged a lot of organic marketing. So now I'm really just coaching insurance agents, consulting them, whatever you want to call them, on the same steps that I take still today, because the same rules apply to my coaching business as it did selling insurance. And I just give them the same frameworks, because I spent $250,000 over the last year and a half on coaching, consulting, masterminds. I've burned so much money just to learn mistakes. I've learned what not to do for the majority of that money. There was a couple coaches who got me disproportionate results, but it's like I bought their years of experience. They're 20, 30 years ahead of me. So now I have hundreds of years of experience that no one else does, simply because I paid for it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's
so
the
now
shortcut.
I just share that with them.
Yeah, one way or another, you're going to pay for things. You're either going to pay for it with money or with blood. And you get to decide what you have more of, or what you can.
How much do you want to leak out? How long do you want to bleed? Like, why you want to take 15 years to solve a 3-week problem? That's 99% of people. So that's why I love hypnosis, is because it completely gets rid of all the limiting beliefs, and they're operating on fresh, updated hardware. That's it. New generation is taking over technology. Like, it doubles every 18 months. You might as well use it, or you can get swept away with the curve. It's survival of the fittest. It's eat or be eaten. We live in an ultra competitive world. And if you don't want it as bad as you say you want it, there's someone out there outworking me right now.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's like, I'm not doing podcast. I like to sacrifice, because I like having conversations like this. I love meeting new people.
Right.
But it's like someone out there might be doing, like, seeing what I'm doing. And it's like, I'm going to do this. He's learning from me, because I'm kind of first to market with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting how our reality is formed by the people and the things that we see around us, and that reality doesn't really change until it gets challenged. It gets challenged by something we're not ready for. I've walked through many different steps of the entrepreneurial journey, and when I was surrounded by broke people and wannabes, that's what I was, and that's what I felt. And then I saw somebody that didn't do that, and I was like, well, what's that? What are you doing? I want to be like you. And so I started being like them. And then there was a moment where I realized there's an infinite scale above wherever you are, because I was at the time, this was almost 10 years ago, I was working for one of the most successful and influential people that I had ever known. And I worked my way into being like his number one guy. And I loved my position. I loved my job, and I loved the opportunity that was created. And then one time he hosted an event where he brought a guy in named Richard Koch. And Richard Koch, if you are not familiar, he's the author of a book called The 80-20 Principle. And So he brings in Richard Koch to be a guest speaker at his event, like basically the keynote speaker. And I'm organizing this event, and Richard is there, and like he loved burgers. I was basically his handler, right? He's like, Josh, can you get me another American burger? And I'm like, yeah, I got you, man. Fascinating dude. So we're sitting in a meeting, and this guy's running a successful company. It's like internet marketing and consulting and stuff. And I'll leave out the specifics because it's not my company, and I don't want to but we're having a conversation about business opportunities. And one of the things that Richard said was like, we were looking for a partnership kind of thing, And one of the things that Richard said was like, I just can't believe, I'm going to drop the British accent for this one. I just can't believe that you guys do so much work for so little revenue. He's like, that doesn't interest me at all. And this is a dude that like, he lives in Portugal. Every day at like 3:00, he goes on a bike ride through his little city. And whatever it is, if you went all the way to Portugal to visit him in his giant house, he would stop. If it's 3:00, he would be like, I'm going to go on a bike ride now. I'll see you later. And he's like living his life. And then he comes over, like they fly him over, they pay him all this money, and we're presenting this business, and it's a multi-million-dollar business, And he's like, you guys are working way harder than I want to work. And that's where I realized, like, there is no limit. You got to surround yourself with the people that are thinking differently, or you're going to be stuck doing the same thing all over.
That's what I mean, though. Most people do not plan like that. I knew this industry was very high leverage simply because I sold insurance in it. But it's like, let me write out a plan. Let me calculate all the LTVs. Let me see the potential opportunity size in this trillion-dollar industry. And it's like, I made all my plan. I wrote out every single list of problems that an insurance agent has simply because I've worked with hundreds of them before I even started the company. It's like, I had everything I needed. And that's why I had such a successful launch.
That's right.
That's
awesome.
Most people just don't want to do the groundwork. And that's not trying to brag on myself. I just want to show people, like, it's not that fucking hard.
Yeah.
You're just letting your feelings get in the way.
That's right. Taking it right back full circle to the beginning of the conversation. I love it. So 2 questions. Number one, if there is an insurance agent or a potential insurance agent that's listening to this podcast, aside from you got to take action, stop worrying about your feelings, can you give one relevant, juicy tip that how do I solve the biggest problem? Let's say, how do I generate enough leads and enough business in the first year to where I can be successful? What would be your number one pro tip for that?
You gotta generate sales. And if you can do marketing, I love networking events. Like, go to your local chamber of commerce, because you're going to find people that you can network with, and it takes time to build quality relationships with them. It takes time. You have to truly bring the value. And if you don't have the value, that's your fault. It's your job to go build it up as a man. But go talk to divorce attorneys. Go talk to like real estate people who are selling houses to people. Whatever. What better person to sell a mortgage protection policy to? Estate planners. They're working with people who are about to die. Like, go talk to people who already have a huge book of business with your target audience and incentivize that relationship. People say transactional relationships are bad. Every relationship is transactional. If someone's punishing you, you're not going to stay in the relationship very long.
That's right.
So go to networking events. That costs you nothing to be a part of Chamber of Commerce. Banks have events, and most of those people are idiots with money anyways. They'll send you tons of referrals.
Good.
Let's just be real. Society is crumbling. So it's not that hard to get one leg up above the competition.
Yep. That's right. And so the last question here is, if somebody wants to connect with you, how can they learn more about you and what you offer? Who's a good kind of target client for you?
My target client is any insurance agent who is actually serious, like who is so miserable with their existence and their failed business model that they are ready to actually change it, or the person who's already hit a couple home runs and they want to take it to the next level. The people who have gotten complacent with making a couple tens of thousands a month and want to double or triple that, if you're already a 7, I can take you to a 9 easier than I can take a 4 to like a 5 or a 6. The better agent you are, the more I can help you out because you've already had some level of success. How you can reach me, shoot me a text message. My assistant will route you through if you're serious. Can I drop my cell phone number on here?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's 270-724-3633, or just search Mason VanMeter. And if you don't, you'll see me around soon enough.
That's right. Excellent. And you've got a website too, right?
Yeah, they can go to HTTPS. Make sure you put the S in there. runningbuddies.life/new agent. Or like I said, just search me on social media. Anywhere you will find me. And you'll get sucked into the black hole of a funnel or something.
And you won't.
But I truly want to help these
let you
people.
go until you buy, die, or take out a restraining order.
Most of my clients told me no 9 months ago, 8-9 months ago. Now they're coming in. They're broke from not listening to me. And now they're having to take out loans, but they're so excited and so committed. And then I get to solve their real problems. They're either suicidal, depressed, they have a pornography addiction. As soon as we get rid of those, they just start fixing things on their own. It's insane. It's insane.
Yeah, well said. Well, Mason VanMeter, one of the most unique conversations that we've had on here. Thank you so much for coming on here and sharing a little bit about how you think, how you operate, how you get things done. One more time, you said that people can reach out on your cell phone number. What was that cell phone number one more time?
270-724-3633.
Excellent. If you are a life insurance agent and you're looking to, you're tired of the situation that you're in and you're looking to grow and break through, you can reach out to Mason VanMeter, and you can also visit his website, runningbuddies.life/new agent. We're going to wrap from here. Thanks so much again to Mason for coming on here and sharing his wisdom. You can connect with him again at runningbuddies.life/new agent. And if you want to keep hearing great content like this, be sure to follow and subscribe to the Do Zone podcast on Apple or Spotify. One last reminder, if you do run a business that is stalling out and you're looking for a boost, for less than it costs to take your staff out to lunch, we got your back. Visit unbreakableteams.com to learn more. Until next time, remember, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. What are you going to do with yours?